Welcome to the SpiritWoke Podcast, podcasting from the beautiful city of Stillwater, the birthplace of Minnesota. Are you going through a spiritual awakening? Do you wish to learn more about continued spiritual growth and want to meet others who are on a similar journey? We hope that this podcast and its community can be a meaningful resource for you. The SpiritWoke Podcast welcomes special guests from around the globe who share personal stories of their awakening journey, along with details of spiritual abilities they've developed along the way. So buckle up and get ready for this exciting episode. And now, here's your host, Adam Dins.
Friends, well, welcome back to the SpiritWoke Podcast. And today is a first time for us. We are actually broadcasting this podcast and recording. I'm just going to check my device. Yes, we are recording live from the Soul and Synergy Metaphysical and Wellness Fair here in beautiful Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I don't know if Eau Claire known for anything in particular? Is there like a flower or a...
Well, there's a lot of the lumberjack things around here. We have Babe the Blue Ox and statue of Paul Bunyan.
Okay.
The logging camps here. The rivers, convergence of the rivers coming together, Chippewa and Eau Claire River.
There's a big art center here.
Yes.
Okay, big art center.
The Pablo Center, Pablo Center, and I think Eau Claire means clear water.
Correct.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, in the French. And yeah, so theater groups are really good here, and it's a community theater. It's very entertaining here, to say the least.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely have a lot of healers here.
Yes.
Known and unknown.
Yeah, Eau Claire is a very big very big spiritual community here, and it's a great spiritual community, very diverse, a lot of healers, psychics, mediums, intuitives of all sorts. And so we happen to be here at the epicenter of all that at the Soul and Synergy Metaphysical and Wellness Fair. So if you're in Wisconsin and you want to come by and check it out, when I say if you're in Wisconsin, Wisconsin's massive. So if you're close to Eau Claire and you want to come check us out, we're here. We're at the Best Western Hotel. I don't know the address, but if you Google Soul and Synergy Metaphysical Fair, you'll find it. And we are here all day. So come on down and check us out and enjoy. And I am really excited to introduce you to two folks today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Judy Meinen, right?
Correct.
Judy Meinen and Kathy Drinkman. And we're here today to talk about the topic of the Angelic Realm. And I don't know what the Angelic Realm is. In fact, this is really the first time I'm even hearing about it. So I'm really excited to dive deep in today with both Judy and Kathy. And last night I had the pleasure, I got here a little bit late. I drove in from Minneapolis, and it's a long day. But I got here for the last bit of an event that Kathy was hosting. And Kathy was reading, I'm sorry, I did it again. Judy. Judy was doing this amazing reading for the entire room, and watching her speak to, it was incredible. Like one after the other, just 100% spot on accurate. It was a really heartfelt, touching, emotional experience, and she even shared with me things that I've known that other people haven't necessarily known. Really weird stuff. Of course, when you think about me, everything's weird. But it was stuff that she knew, and after like 2 seconds. So I had the chance to speak with Kathy last night and just get to know them a little bit better. And so I think what you're going to find today is a really spirited, exciting discussion about a really powerful topic, so the Angelic Realm. So before we jump in, Judy, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about your spiritual awakening experience, and then Kathy afterwards. That would be wonderful if you would.
Okay. So should I say a little bit about myself?
Yeah, introduce introduce yourself. Tell us all about you.
So I'm a registered nurse. I've always worked with pediatrics and neonatal intensive care, labor and delivery. I've always loved working with kids. And what I found with them, too, is they're very connected to the spirit realm. So that was very helpful for me. I came from what I do now in my office. I have Angel Care Healing Touch is the name of my business. And I do hypnosis and QXCI, biofeedback, herbals, homeopathics, I go with clients to their doctor's appointments. I teach Reiki classes and do Reiki and Healing Touch on people. So it's a very eclectic buffet of things that I offer the community, and I welcome other people into the office after I vet them out and make sure they're going to be good for everybody in the office. So my awakening basically came when I was 3 years old. It started just the feeling of trees are talking to each other, squirrels talk to each other. And it was not okay for me to discuss this with my mother. I found out I got my mouth slapped, and she took me to a mental institute where my grandma was and said, "You're going to end up here if you ever talk about what you think are fairies and the woods talking to each other again." So it pushed it down. But in working with pediatrics, when I would hold really sick babies and we couldn't figure out what was wrong with them, I would start getting lab values and blood work values as if I was reading them off a chart, or I'd get like the name of a disease process typed up overhead, and I would suggest, can we check for this? And that's what it would be, and doctors would say, well, how do you know that? It's like, I don't know that, it was just a hunch. So I had to dumb down these feelings that I had. So my awakening was kicking and screaming is what I put it as, because in the religion I was brought up in, very fundamentalist, you were not allowed to talk about any of these things. So it either had to be science or it had to come from the Bible. And so my awakening process was rough because I fought it all the way until I took a Healing Touch class to prove them all crazy and wrong and vet them out to the community and say, see, these are scam artists, don't believe them. And then I became converted because everything they had science background to it, and I could feel it and I couldn't deny it anymore. So I went in to prove them all wrong, and now I'm one of them. So it's been exciting since then, and my kids all have, I started to realize everybody has abilities. I have nothing special. I'm just becoming aware of it.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, we find on the podcast a lot of our guests have awakening experiences where they were really ingrained in a certain religion or faith, if you will, for a long time, and it's such a shock to everybody, meaning the family of the person, when this new thing comes up, and it's so different. And I know historically, I mean, you can go back to the days of the witches, right? Like, right. Anytime these types of gifts or abilities arise, it's like, they're crazy. There's something wrong with them. Lock them up, kill them. As right. You mentioned last night in your event here, right? There was right. a woman in the front row who had been killed in many lifetimes before because of her abilities and her gifts, and that's but it's great nowadays that I think that society is seeing more of this, and it's becoming more acceptable, and the science is starting to back it up. It's not just theory anymore. I mean, you have neurosurgeons who have experienced near-death experience who come back and say, let me tell you scientifically how all of this stuff is not explained by science. Yeah. But it is, and in a new way, and it's just absolutely fascinating.
It is. It's remarkable, and it satisfies the scientific nerd part of me that has to have a physics law to explain things. Right. And even though I understand science can only explain the tip of the iceberg of spirituality starts explaining science. So it kind of loops. So Absolutely. It's good to hear other people talk about the science end, because that's where I live and breathe from.
It's really interesting if you think about quantum physics, and you actually map the philosophy of quantum to a lot of what we talk about spiritually. They're just two different ways of describing the same thing.
Exactly.
Right? One is a scientific perspective, which is legit, and the other perspective is a spiritual version of it. But either way, they're both trees in the forest.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Kathy, would you share a little bit about yourself and then your spiritual awakening journey?
Yeah, I'm Kathy Drinkman. I'm in the same office as Judy Meinen in Altoona. I've been doing this going on 13 years now. My business is called Higher Healings, and the website is higherhealingsenergy.com. I do Reiki, and as I started out in Reiki, all these gifts started to open up. So all my clairs are open now, and I started getting messages and that sort of thing. People say to me, did you always have this? And I can't really say that I was very aware that I had any extra gifts, if you will, but I was always very tuned in to people and very sensitive to people. And I had a great imagination that my mom kept telling me I had to leave behind. She just kept saying, oh, that's just your imagination. It's just your So then I learned to shut that down because it was obviously not of value. And that's, I think, is a very important part in how we are as spiritual beings, is to allow ourselves to open up and dream and imagine, because we're so much more than just a human. We are a spiritual being having a human experience.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I do Reiki, and I teach classes on Reiki. I've been trained in medical Reiki, so I'm really an advocate about getting someone to help people that are going into surgery, just because everything is energy. And so if we have a person that's very upset going into surgery, to keep them calm, bringing their bodies back into harmony, will automatically help them heal quicker because they're in a state of peace versus being upset. And then we're working to get them into the surgery room because then the body can stay calm, and everyone benefits obviously from Reiki in the surgery room. And then after, bringing that body back into harmony again, even after medications, cutting into the body, whatever have you. So I'm a really big advocate on that, and I think the healers and traditional and medical can definitely work together, side by side. That is my dream and my hope. Judy and I discussed many times about having a healing center that would bring all of that into perspective, that people could choose what kind of healing modality they wanted. So anyway, what else do you want to know? Been doing Reiki for a while, and I do house parties, gallery readings. I'm having a gallery reading today at 11.
Excellent.
Just love what I do. How did I become awake? Actually, it started with, I read a book. I went to a conference, a wellness conference, and I was drawn to this lady called Lisa Thielen, and I couldn't stop looking at her or wondering what the heck she was talking about. And I knew when she demonstrated Reiki, I was in a place where I needed to be. And things just started to open up. I just knew things. I just felt things. I knew I was in the right place. After my first attunement, I had an out-of-body experience, which was totally amazing. I had to check myself, because when you have those things and you've never had one, you think you're crazy, but I was very assured that this is just part of the process. And after that, just amazing things started happening. Just even reading the Reiki book from Diane Stein, I was having smells of chocolate chip cookies being baked, and no one was baking chocolate chip cookies at night.
Wow.
So I was obviously visited by my husband's late mother, who I'd never met before. And I was so anxious to tell my husband in the morning that we'd been visited by his mom. And he just looked at me and went, right, and walked out the door. And I was just devastated. It was like, wow, I don't know. So one of the things I did is I went back to the kitchen. I was washing dishes, and I said, Marlis, if this is really you, blink the lights above my head. And she did. And it scared the crap out of me. Because then I realized, okay, if you're going to do this is part of the journey. And, it's just, and it totally changes your life.
Yeah.
For the better. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You start to realize that you're so much bigger than you thought you were. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way.
No.
So you can't be on the SpiritWoke podcast and mention an out-of-body experience and let that slip. So can you briefly explain your out-of-body? What happened?
Shortly after my attunement, I came out of my body, and I was taken to a canyon. Either I was an eagle or I flew on an eagle. I wasn't sure. And I flew over this valley with lots of trees, and in the middle of these trees was a pyramid. And I knew I needed to be in this pyramid. So I kept flying around it, and then all of a sudden I was in the pyramid, and I remember being a young boy and being inside this pyramid, and whatever it was that I got, it just came into me. And then all of a sudden I was back on the eagle, and I was back. Then I kind of come to in my body. And that experience, I don't know how I left, but I remember coming back in through my head and being awake.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just speechless for a while until I could kind of put my stuff together. And I asked my teacher what that was about, and she said I had visited the Mayan pyramid. And of course, that became a quest then. I did visit the Mayan pyramids a couple of times, one on a cruise stop, and then just recently this last year. And there's definitely something that I'm drawn to there. Just felt vibration and knowing like these things happen. We're eternal beings.
Right.
So all of that is stored in us, in our soul.
Yeah. Yeah, and for those of you listening who may not be familiar with the term attunement or Reiki, so Reiki is an energetic healing practice. We're all Reiki Masters, so if the equipment blows up here from the energy, just know that's what it is. But
and that's been known to happen.
It does happen. And so an attunement is a process that we go through at each phase within our Reiki training, where our DNA, essentially gets altered in a way, and we open up to new elements of this energy that comes into us and allows us to heal. And a lot of us, when we go through attunement, either experience new gifts or have something metaphysical happen to us, a more profound experience than day-to-day life. And so, as Kathy was sharing her story, you could talk to a lot of different Reikis, and they'll tell you a lot of different things that happen during their attunement experience. And most of it we don't expect. A lot of people, Reiki is an introduction to awakening. They hear about Reiki, they go in, they get attuned, something happens, and they're like, holy moly, like, what is all of this? And so that happens. So just want to give some context for those of you who may not be as familiar with all of the terms we may be using today. And so thank you so much for sharing that, Kathy. And I am excited to dig into the angelic realm. So Judy, Kathy, would you tell us a little bit, what is the angelic realm, and is that different than other dimensions? Is it the same? Like, how does that work?
As I see the angels, and this is why my business is called Angel Care Healing Touch, because the two death experiences I had, age 11 and age 20, and I knew before then there were always angels around, but they don't look like the pictures of angels that I saw in the Bible stories or in the books. They don't look like humans with wings, more like pillars of light or bright lights with expansions out that could be perceived as wings. And to me, are they different from the other dimensions? I think they can have sometimes a softer piece to them. They may feel a little bit more approachable in that energy format. But to me, all energy is energy. Mm-hmm. So it's like energy can create a rose, or it can create pomegranates, or it can create, animals. But the angelic realm, for some people, it's easier for them to relate to that because that's something that's been referred to. Mm. So when I'm talking about angels, it's a powerful energy that's very supportive and encouraging. And I think that each person sees the angel or an angel the way they need to see it to help them connect, if that makes sense. So like the different archangels, Raphael, to me, I perceive him as like a two-headed green dragon that does a lot of surgical laser work. So when I'm working on somebody, I see their grid pop open, like they show on the screens and like the Matrix and so forth. It just pops open, and I start getting numbers and letters like in a code. And then I see Raphael's energy just coming in and refining a grid line or a grid mark. And I'll hear the person take a deep sigh, and I'll know which organ to go to. So for me, the angels help within the healing process, as well as when I'm doing readings, they're behind the scenes, kind of as the person is talking, working with their emotions. As they bring up emotions, they can clear them.
Okay.
So for me, the angelic realm, it's very powerful. And like I tell people, I'm not that kind of angel. I am not the soft, fluffy bunny type. It's like I have an honesty problem and things fall out of my mouth. And yes, I cuss. I grew up with helping my dad in the garage fix engines and mix mud and forge every Sunday in the summer. So I learned garage French, which I found out we do not use in the kitchen, or we will get soap in our mouth. So for me, the angels can be very soft and gentle, but they can also be a force to move you forward. But I've never felt them to be angry or disappointed. A lot of people are afraid they're going to disappoint angels. That's not something you get. So like my experiences when I died at age 11 after falling off of a bike, because the handlebars decided they no longer wanted to be attached to the rest of the bike while going 30 miles an hour on a gravel road. The coming out of the body, I could feel gold around me, if you can feel a color. And it was just like, oh, everything's okay. I can see this lump of flesh laying on the ground by the bike. It's like I was out of myself seeing it, but I couldn't feel any of the pain until people started moving me and I was back in. And then while I was in the hospital, while they were moving me to the x-ray department to see how many bones had been broken, I was out of body following them.
Wow.
And then I could see them stop and start compressions, and, they were bagging me, and it's like, she's gone, get her back. And then I came back in, and then I could really feel the pain. But when I was out of body, when you're dead, that is the greatest feeling ever. It's like I knew everything. And to me, there was no hell. That Christ energy, not the person, but an energy, just kind of said, "Oh, it's unconditional love. You're all good. You get to review your life, and then you have a choice. Do you want to go back in, or do you want to stay?"
Right.
And evidently, I chose to get back in. So the angels for me they're very supportive, and they're showing there's this free will. You contracted for this. You can negotiate your contract anytime. What do you want to do? We'll support you.
So I have a question to add on to that, but Kathy, do you want to share your perspective?
Everything that Judy said, but one of the things that I do feel very strongly is that we're given angels and guides prior to our birth. They come in with us, and there's definitely specific things that angels do. One of them is guide us. They can't direct us, but they can guide us through this earthly plane. And then, of course, they come in different situations where, they come in and, you hear these stories where somebody came in and lifted a car and pulled someone out, and then they were gone and nobody could find them. And those are angels that appear, our archangels that appear in times of need. They're always with us. And there's also many different dimensions. I agree with Judy that on that side there is no hell, there is no negativity. It is unconditional love always. And it's just an amazing place. We could definitely feel that we could feel that here.
Yeah.
Changing that vibration here would change the world.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's so when we talk about the angelic realm, right? So we think about it as is there a realm? Is there a place? I know, like,
it's more like a frequency or vibration.
Okay.
Even people from the Bible have come through, like Ezekiel. I actually had to go look up Ezekiel because I channeled him one day. Had no idea why or how come. Just came. Jesus, Mary, the disciples, all of them from the Bible are on the other side and can come through if you ask them to. And they'll come through in different ways that we understand, because everybody's kind of like an antenna. They attune a little bit different in how they receive. And so they use your library of knowledge to help you understand what their messages are.
Okay. Powerful. So Judy, in your when you had your near-death experiences, the two of them, did you were the angels like the frequency that you were connected to immediately? Because I know when some people have a near-death experience, they're transported to another place and they see those who have crossed over, or they experience what they maybe have imagined to be heaven in the past, and and they see that there's so many different experiences, but in your case, were angels like core to your?
That's what I felt. And again, they didn't look like the typical angels that I kept getting. People would say, "Is this what you saw?" No, but yes. So it felt like that was the support. They weren't right in my face. I knew other relatives were there, but they were kind of standing back waiting for my decision on my contract. Do you want to stay or do you want to go? So I love that song, Should I Stay or Should I Go? That kind of plays through my head. But that was how I recognized an energy around me because to me we're all part of these energies, they're all part of us.
Right.
If we're all kind of created within the same, energy field, then all of our energy is interchangeable.
Right.
And the fact that we're 99.9999% space that contains all of the information for creating everything, it just makes sense. We're always connected to everybody. And whether I view it as angels, if that's my perception, or are they extraterrestrials, is there a difference between extraterrestrial beings and angels? I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We had a guest, Dave Schrader, on the podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with Dave. So Dave hosts a show on the Travel Channel called The Holzer Files. He's also been on Ghost Adventures, which is a really fun show if you like the really creepy ghost stuff. But he came on to talk about UFOs, aliens, and all that stuff. And he's a very pragmatic person. So, and when I interviewed him, I sent him my questions beforehand, and he's a busy guy. He's like, I don't need to look at your questions. He's like, I don't have to prepare. I know what my answers are going to be. I've been doing this for a long time. I said, okay, that's fair. So I created these questions, and all of the questions after the first one were sort of based on the fact that he would answer yes to the question, the first question, that he believed that aliens existed. And of course, his response to the first question was, well, I don't know. And I'm like, dude, you have shows about aliens. Like, that's what you do. What do you mean you don't believe? And he started giving all of these other explanations for what aliens could be or what ghosts could be, right? Because, he was saying something like, well, we see things as ghosts. We imagine these spirits walking around in our homes, and we see things happen. Well, how do we know those aren't aliens? And vice versa. Like, we see this alien phenomena, we see things in the sky, we see these lights. How do we not know that that's not another dimension coming in from another realm? We don't know. There's no way for us to know. And it's interesting to hear your take on this, because, I haven't experienced anything, myself with angels in particular, but what I found through studying, because I like to read a lot, and that's what kind of got me into my awakening experience, is that, and this really sat well with me when I learned it, was that a lot of times when we have if we have a near-death experience, or we have an out-of-body, or we, whatever the case is, we tend to see things that sort of align with what we believe and what we know, because if we were immediately shown what things really are, we wouldn't understand it, and it would just be way too traumatic. And so we kind of are introduced to, we kind of see things as though we understand. And so it kind of goes to how you're explaining it to people, where you're, and I'm talking to Judy here, where, she's explaining it as angels, because that's the archetype that our brains as human beings can process. We hear Archangel Michael or Raphael, and, we see the images in our mind of what we've, the pictures at the antique shops, right? Right. Oh yeah, I know what those are. But really, it's just a way to archetype something that we can't, as humans, really fathom what it is.
Right. Yeah. It's a format, just like anything. Like if I'm doing a reading for somebody who works in printing, the guides will give me examples using printing technique or terminology that I don't know what it is, but it's in their wheelhouse, and it's how they wrap their head around it. So, and it's more important that they understand it than whether or not I get validated, because the readings aren't about me, they're about the people. So when energies are coming through like that, I'm just an instrument, and they will pat me on the head and go, "That's okay, you don't understand, we got this. Just keep talking. Just use your face." So
Yeah.
I have to add that when we're talking about angels and aliens and that sort of thing, I think that obviously we're not alone. I'm pretty sure that God didn't create just the earth. There's many dimensions out there. And so when I do healings, I don't know about you, Judy, but I can definitely tell when there's an alien versus an angel, just by the mere vibration and frequency. Alien energy comes in with no emotion. They just come in and boom, they get what they need to be done, and they can do things without the vibration or energy of, they're very lasered. They like get in, get it done, and be done. Where other vibrations and energies come in with a more loving and, more encompassing energy of love. Where angels, it's not about not love. It's just they get it done, and so it's just a different energy.
see, and I experience different alien frequencies. So the Palladian researcher types, like what they call the Greys, they come in. They're dragnet, just the facts, ma'am. They're coming in to get information and data and analysis, and they do it very quickly. But the blue Palladians are more nurturing. And so those, there's like a beam of like that, like a electric blue type light, I feel. So and Andromedans are different and Syrians are different. And so getting to kind of know which ones are coming in. But I hear you, when it's a researcher alien, it is dragnet.
So okay, so you're actually getting into a topic that I think the next question I wanted to ask you kind of covers, but with a different twist.
Okay.
So my initial question was, how do angels incorporate into your healing practice? But now that we've gotten into the alien talk, I'd love for you to address the angelic, how angels help you heal. And I think you started to share a little bit about that, but Are you also saying that sometimes you'll find alien energy there as well that will also come to help healing, or are they just there to observe and to learn?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
So there are, to me, there are factions that come in to help, just like in a hospital, the surgeons are there to do the surgery. They're not there to do your discharge planning. So to me, there's different frequencies of what does the person on the table need? What are they calling in? Because I do feel, like I was talking about last night, we're bioelectromagnetic beings on a bioelectromagnetic planet. So anytime we have a thought through our nervous system, which is electrically charged, we are broadcasting a signal out that will get answered. So if I'm broadcasting a signal out for, okay, I'm really upset, but this person is asking me what I want to work on, and I'm just going to say hip pain. We may never address hip pain because the way the angels come in is if we believe that emotions and stress are one of the main causes of physical illness, because everything trickles down, then the emotions have to be addressed for the physical illness or dis-ease process to heal. So we might just do a counseling session the whole time and never even talk about the hip. But they'll say when they get off the table, "Oh, I feel kind of drunk." And I do not drug my patients. I just
Well, that's
make
good.
it very clear.
That's good.
They would like me
Drunk
to,
on
but I
love.
don't.
Or maybe, I was saying maybe someone would prefer if you drug them.
They would. It's cheaper for them. But they come off and they're like, "Oh, I feel drunk. I feel like my voice is higher or lower, or and I don't have that pain anymore. We didn't even address the pain. You didn't even touch that area." But it's like, we followed the thread back. Your guides come in, your angels come in, ETs come in if they need to, if that's what you require, if you're one of them, if you're more geared toward them. And so their incorporation is totally based on what the client needs, not what I, as the human, the meat suit, thinks that, oh, as a nurse, I think you need this because this is what you verbalized. The angels go, they pull back the Wizard of Oz curtain and go, there's where we need to go.
Yeah.
They don't want to address this because they don't want to be embarrassed, but we're going in because they gave themselves on the table. So So it's always interesting to me because as a human being, like I said, I know this much, but when I'm in the grid, everything just flips open.
Yeah.
Like a Jacob's ladder. So, and I don't know if you get that too.
Yeah, and I agree. I just think that we are the conduit. So, when we connect, protect, and allow, we're allowing the highest vibrations and frequencies to come through for the person on the table. And it's whatever's needed, whether it's an emotional, healing or what we call psychic surgery or whatever it is what it is for that person for the highest good. Yeah. So we're never alone in our healings. Yeah. It is, and sometimes we're guided in our healings to do a certain thing or whatever, and we don't even understand. Yeah. So they're actually teaching us as we go to do this or that or the other thing. So it's just amazing library of knowledge and wisdom.
Kathy, will you explain what psychic surgery means?
Psychic surgery usually, John of God does it, definitely goes in with a specific, whatever the ailment is or whatever they need done, like say tumor, let's just say a tumor. There'll usually be someone, if we do it as collectively as a group, there'll be someone that will actually perform the psychic surgery energetically, go in and remove or disconnect the dis-ease of what's feeding that tumor. And then the body can start to heal.
Got it. So they're connecting with in psychic surgery, the practitioner is able to connect with the energy of the ailment or the disease that the individual has and work specifically on that energy. They're that tuned in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah,
I've heard that term before, and I feel as a healer myself, not knowing that term, a little bit inferior. It's like, I've heard that term. I don't know what it is, but I'll get my answer today. So that's good. That's it's really fascinating. When you think about healing, and I in Reiki, I'll call in people's angels, their spirit guides, their Reiki helpers, all these different, as many entities as possibly can to welcome them in for healing. But I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm sensitive enough to know exactly. I know all of them are there, but I can't pinpoint, what's going on. But it's always fascinating, and sometimes I feel for me that spirit likes it that way. Because it takes the me out of it, right? Like when I can't say, I saw your angel over there, and your angel is telling me this. It doesn't allow me to do that. Right. And I think, if I'm being honest here, as my ego is still in the process of dying, that probably wouldn't be a good thing for me. So it still amazes me. I'm still taken back every time I have a client come in and they leave and they said, I experienced this thing. And I'm like, really? Like, you did? I was like, well, that's really cool. Like, that's really impressive. Impressive that it happened. And so, but I just find it so fascinating. Folks like both of you that are able to really get to that level of granularity and just the mystical experience of being involved with something that particular.
Yeah, to me, it's very powerful. And the science part of me, like I probably tell people 10% of what I'm actually being shown. Because like I know the surgeon doesn't explain to the scalpel what's going on, right? And nobody says to the scalpel, oh my God, you did a great job. I'm just facilitating the healing. I can't heal anybody. I'm lucky I can get myself to the bathroom on time. So I'm not claiming, I have no pretense that I can heal anybody. The person on the table does the healing. When I'm doing readings, they call in what they need. If their guides are already talking to them, the guides don't bother to tell me any more information because it's not about Judy Meinen, it's about that person getting what they need to know, whether they like it or not.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. Yeah, for sure. If you have somebody on the table that's very tuned in, a lot of times it's just exchanging the energy and letting the energy flow and they're talking directly to them. And I'm glad you brought that up because neither one of us proclaim that we can heal or diagnose or anything like that because we're not doing anything.
Right.
We're just being.
Right.
We're just connecting and allowing that energy to take place for that person's highest good and whatever that is.
And it's great when we get to see the light show. When I become aware, but I know I'm not doing it. I'm just holding space, and they'll, like you said, they'll reposition us. Like sometimes I'm like, I can't break protocol. I need to. I'm a good girl. I will follow directions. I will do this protocol according to the technique. And they're like, oh, aren't you cute? Why don't you just let us help you? Stop getting in the way. So I hear what you say. The ego in me says, if you're going to be a perfectionist and you're going to do things correctly so you don't annoy people, then you have to follow this. This is the way it's been charted out.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's not what the body needs.
Yeah.
Right. Like especially working with pediatrics. Oh. Sometimes we just have to do things differently. So I love it that they do that, and I feel angels have such a great sense of humor that some people see them as very reverent, and you have to be very churchy and very calm and almost depressed, like somber. And the angels I have never been that way with me, and I know other people I've read for are like, really, the angels say that? It's like they've got a sense of humor. They have not had a humorectomy, and the people who have usually get it reinstalled on the table, or at least when they cross over. So that's a good thing.
And I think it's a very good thing that we brought up the ego, because I really do believe and we all can do this. We all are born from the same place. But learning to quiet the ego and allow that spiritual journey and the love, the unconditional love to take forth, that is really huge. And a lot of people struggle with that. They struggle with belief systems or wanting to let go of the control. Yeah. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. When I first started healing, I was very much like what you were saying, Judy, like go by the rules, right? Like hand placement 1, hand placement 2, right? Yes. Do it in this order. Oops, I forgot a step. What did I do wrong? Oh my gosh, it's not going to work, right? Because it's about me. And we went to Sedona. I think it was, I don't remember when it was. It was about a year or so ago, and I was speaking to an energy practitioner, and she's like, "You're too in your head." And she, I didn't ask her like what her opinion was on my healing techniques, but she told me, she's like, "You're way too in your head. You need to learn to let spirit guide you." And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to do that. And I didn't learn that. And when I say learn it, I didn't learn it. Like it wasn't a skill that I studied and figured out how to do. But it wasn't until after my Reiki Master attunement where I was able to, when I say I was able to, it just started happening where all the rules just kind of went away. Yep. And now I find that when I'm in the healing zone, if you will, it's one of the few times where my ego just kind of goes away in a lot of ways, because I just feel so connected that there's so little of this, atom ego, and it opens it up. Whether or not I'm aware of it, it's just, like when you see a musician and they're playing and the jazz pianist just improvising and their eyes are closed and they're going and they don't know what they're doing. Right. Their hands are just...
The music is playing through them.
Yes. And it's such a beautiful place to get to with that. And I can imagine too, with then added layers onto that with, feeling the angelic energy or the alien energy, whatever entity or energy that's there, just feeling that and being able to be in that theater.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, because it's just coming through you. Like having played musical instruments, in high school, you have the person who's playing technically, and it sounds kind of stiff. And then the really good musicians, like you say, like in jazz band, when I finally reached that level, and then I'd have to improvise. It's scary because the perfectionist in me, who knows, okay, I was only second in my class, so obviously I failed, was not the top. But just playing the music enough, and then it just flows through you and fits with how everybody else is improv. And it's not about me playing the music, it's about me getting out of the way and letting the music play through. Yeah. And so the healing is the same way, where I can't do the healing, I can facilitate it. And the person can pull it in like a straw, like I'm just the straw. Yeah. And they bring it in. So it's amazing to me how it works. And just studying like the Joe Dispenza information and because like I say, I need science. Barbara Brennan's book was awesome. Diane Stein brings in some of the quantum physics, and so field theory is one of the biggest things I go off of, because we're just so interconnected. And are we part angel? Are we part star people? Are we? I think we're part of everything, or we wouldn't be able to connect to it. We wouldn't be on a frequency.
Yeah, one of the best explanations I've heard, or I guess not explanation, but just kind of analogy is, you think of all that is, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not all that is, because that would imply that all that is isn't everything, because we're just us, right? But all that is, but we're part of all that is, in the sense that if you imagine a painter and you see a painting, well, the painting isn't the painter,
Right.
but the painter is in the painting.
Right.
And so if you think of that same juxtaposition of that, all that is in all of us, and that is the connecting energy between us all, then everything all together is all that is.
Exactly.
And it's a beautiful thing to think about, and it really levels the playing field. And especially for those, going through the spiritual awakening process. We've talked a lot about this on the podcast. Especially when you start going through it, you're comparing yourself to other people, because you see people like Judy and Carol, who are, or Judy and Kathy, who are way far down in their, or not far down, but you've just been on this path for a long time, and you're new to the experience, this whole thing, and you're like, wow, like I can't compare, with Judy and Kathy. They're seeing angels, they're doing all this stuff, and me, I'm just trying to figure out if I'm crazy or not, right? And so the important thing we've all been there, right? But the important thing to keep in mind as you're going through and you're questioning these things, and these things are coming up, is that we're all the same energy. We're all connected. We're all part of source energy. And when we leave this planet, when our souls leave our bodies and we move on, there's no difference between any of us. We're all love. And so when you think about that message, it's really important, because regardless of what you believe when you're here on Earth, whether you consider yourself to be a good person, a bad person, whether you have an easy life or a hard life, or any of the stuff that goes along with it, we're all the same beautiful energy. And so I just want you to know that and appreciate that about yourselves. And that's part of being able to love ourselves, right? We see each other as these fallible human beings, right? We get depressed, we get upset, we have all these things. It's not who we are. And it's who we are in this human experience. And so I think that's a lot of what we're talking about today. And even just tying it back to the angelic realm, and that the angelic energy is part of who we are too. And though, because we're humans, we have this sense of duality, and we see things as being separate, but it's not. And all of this stuff is who we are. And it's a beautiful thing. And I just got the 5-minute warning from our room officer here. So before we close, and it's hard to believe we've been talking for 50 minutes already. Time just flies by. I would love it, Judy and Kathy, if could you share a little bit about what you're up to and how people can get a hold of you, like where they can find you. And we'll put links on the website on SpiritWoke.com on your podcast page to where all of your resources where people can find you. But just for those watching live now, where can they connect with you?
So just even putting Judy Meinen, Meinen, into a Google search will bring up several different hits on where I'm at, because I've been doing this for 23 years now. But angelcarehealingtouch.com is my website. Phone number where you can schedule appointments or ask questions is 715-832-7250. I am on Facebook under Angel Care Healing Touch and Psychic Judy Meinen, because I do stand up as well. So let's see.
That's next time on the podcast.
So yeah, I think is that.
Yeah,
what you
that's
want?
great.
All right, perfect.
Kathy?
So yeah, we're here in Altoona, Wisconsin.
Yeah, Kathy Drinkman, Higher Healings. HigherHealingsEnergy.com is the website. I also have a page on Facebook. We're in the same office suite in Altoona, 2411 North Hillcrest Parkway, Altoona, Wisconsin. And my phone number is 715-338-7301. Love to hear from everyone out there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I just want to say, when Terry Flick, who is one of the organizers of this event asked me to broadcast a live SpiritWoke podcast, and we're trying to. I was like, well, I don't know anybody out in Eau Claire. I was like, who would you suggest? And then, he suggested both of you, Judy, Kathy. This is the first time that we've really met and talked. So this is all really organic here today. There is nothing planned. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing your hearts and your experiences. I think it's absolutely incredibly authentic. And I know I've learned a lot today. I know a lot more, or at least maybe I've remembered a lot more. If we're gonna get Alan Watts about it,
yes.
But no, I definitely feel like I've learned a lot today. I hope you who are watching or listening in on the recorded podcast have learned a lot, and I highly recommend getting a hold of Judy and Kathy. They are incredible people. They're pure hearts. They're beautiful people that will, if you need anything regarding what they've talked about today and more, check out their websites. They're fantastic resources, and they come with the SpiritWoke badge of recommendation. So in saying that, thank you everybody for joining. I know I see a lot of comments that are up on the screen, and the camera's too far away, and I'm not wearing my glasses, and even if I was, I don't know that I could see all the comments that are up there, but I'm grateful for you who have watched in, and those of you who are listening to the recorded podcast. And until next time, my friends, be well, and namaste.
Thanks for listening to the SpiritWoke Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to check out our website, spiritwoke.com, and connect with the SpiritWoke community on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search SpiritWoke. Join us next time for another edition of the SpiritWoke Podcast. Namaste.